This is a fight which, understandably, very few people are excited about or looking forward to. And in fact, the entire card itself, as you can see, is pretty much garbage. However, Martirosyan, and in fact, let me just talk about why people are not excited for the fight, understandably, why they're not looking forward to it. Because Martirosyan has never fought at 160. He's a career light middleweight. He's never been a world champion. He's taken the fight on very short notice, and he's been out the ring for 2 years. So when you combine all those factors, it's hardly surprising that very few people are excited about this fight. Most people, understandably, are expecting it to be a mismatch, a blowout in favor of Golovkin. What I will say, though, is Martirosyan, in my view, is an underrated light middleweight contender. And he has faced very good opposition throughout his career. You want to take a quick scroll through his record here on BoxRec, and you'll see, if you haven't seen these fights, many of you have actually seen these fights, but for those of you who haven't, Martirosyan fought Erislandy Lara twice, and at least one of those fights was controversial in terms of the scoring. He fought Demetrius Andrade. He only lost that by a split decision. He fought Willie Nelson. He fought Jermell Charlo. He fought Ishe Smith. So, Martirosyan, over the past, well, prior to his 2-year layoff, for several years was facing elite competition at 154. And in fact, it's not too much of a stretch to say that his level of opposition hasn't been too far removed from Gennady Golovkin's level of opposition. He hasn't fought the Canelos of the world, Martirosyan, but he has fought Lara, who many people believe beat Canelo. Now, I personally didn't think Lara did enough, but there are a lot of people who think Lara did do enough. So that has to be said. And Lara, obviously, a long-reigning world champion up until recently. Ishe Smith was a world champion. Jermell Charlo is a current world champion. Demetrius Andrade is a former world champion. So this is very, very high-level competition that Martirosyan has had. And why I bring all this up? Well, I think the physicality of Gennady Golovkin is going to be too much for Martirosyan, but I don't necessarily think the technicality of Golovkin is going to be too much for him. Golovkin has got a very, very good jab. He doesn't waste shots. He's got extremely good balance. He's very good at cutting off the ring. I think that Golovkin is the best fighter in boxing today at cutting off the ring. But he's certainly not good defensively. He's easy to hit. There's minimal head movement there. And he's relatively clever as a pressure fighter. But you saw in the Canelo fight that Golovkin's not that clever. Relatively clever against limited opposition. But against Canelo, he didn't look that clever. He looked strong. He looked relentless. But did you think he was outsmarting Canelo? No, I thought Canelo looked like the smarter fighter in there. Against Danny Jacobs, there didn't seem to be any type of wide gap in terms of cleverness or who was setting traps or anything like that. If anything, Danny Jacobs was setting more traps. Danny Jacobs landed far more power punches against Golovkin. Facts. Golovkin landed more punches overall because the vast majority of Golovkin's punches were jabs. Now, is it clever from a strategic point of view to use the jab against Danny Jacobs when he's landed a lot of power shots? Yes, it is clever. So I'm not saying he's dumb. All I'm saying is I don't think Gennady Golovkin's boxing brain is what's going to bother Vanes Martirosyan, because Martirosyan has been in with plenty of guys that have good boxing brains, plenty of guys with fast reflexes and good boxing skills and all that kind of stuff. So don't underestimate Vanes Martirosyan's skill set here. He is actually going to be more skilled than a lot of the guys Golovkin fought at middleweight. Not all of the guys, don't misquote me. I'm saying a lot of the guys, because Golovkin has not faced a whole heap of stellar opposition at 160. He's faced a few stellar fighters, but mostly very mediocre guys, over-the-hill guys, guys moving up in weight, etc., etc. So Vanes Martirosyan will actually be one of the more skilled fighters that Golovkin has faced. Obviously, the issue being, as I've already mentioned, is that Martirosyan is coming off a layoff. He's taking it at short notice, and he's a career light middleweight, not a middleweight. So the physicality, I think, will be a problem for Martirosyan. The fact that he's never been in there with anyone remotely as powerful as Gennady Golovkin. And if you look at Vanes Martirosyan's record, you'll find that he's been down several times in his career against people who are nowhere near the level of puncher that Gennady Golovkin is. Down against Saul Roman. Down against Kasim Umar. And there are a few other times when he was been down, which I can't be bothered to, scroll through at the moment. I can't think off the top of my head, but still, he's been hurt and down multiple times at 154. That does not inspire me with confidence that he'll be able to take Gennady Golovkin's power. He says he's going to try and adapt his game plan on the fly. He'll go in there to bang, but if he gets hurt, he'll get on his bike. Most people expecting him to get on his bike very quickly. Most people expecting that he won't even go in there and bang at all. We'll see. I don't know what he's going to do. The fact that he's taking this fight on such short notice, I mean, he might gamble. Sometimes fighters do. Sometimes when a fighter takes a fight on really short notice, he thinks to himself, you know what? I'm not even in shape to go to 12 rounds. So let me just go in there and try and bang it out and knock the guy out and, take that risk, because there's no way I can go 12. I'm not in shape to go 12. Perhaps that's going to be Martirosyan's mindset. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. And if Martirosyan was to win and pull off the upset, it would be a huge upset. It would be one of the biggest upsets in boxing history. But it wouldn't be the biggest upset. It certainly wouldn't be the biggest upset I've seen in my lifetime. The biggest upset I've ever seen in my lifetime was, without a doubt, Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson. That was monumental. It wouldn't even be as big, at least not for me. I don't know what the bookies are saying. Maybe it would be as big for the bookies, but it wouldn't even be as big for me as Evander Holyfield beating Mike Tyson in terms of upset. Holyfield was over, I think, a 20-1 or 25-1 underdog. Something like that. I haven't checked the odds for Martirosyan against Triple G. But yeah, Martirosyan definitely going to be one of the more skilled fighters. What I will say is this. I'm not expecting Martirosyan to win, but I would not be at all surprised if Martirosyan actually puts a lot of Golovkin's previous opponents to shame with the performance that he puts in. Because Martirosyan has heart, he's a tough guy, and he has skills. And he's, as I say, the level of opposition Martirosyan has faced is not much different from the level of opposition that Golovkin has faced overall. I didn't say it's exactly the same. I said it's not much different. Yeah? So I wouldn't be surprised if he went in there and did himself proud and did better than the likes of Lemieux or Wade or, William Monroe or these guys. Rubio, Gil. I wouldn't be surprised if he did better than those guys. Yeah, it doesn't mean he's going to. He's had very short prep. And in fact, talking about Martirosyan's prep, I've seen some training footage, and Martirosyan does not look to me anywhere near fight sharp. He might be on weight to make 160 because he's used to fighting at 154. But in terms of his sharpness, he doesn't look fight sharp to me in the training footage I've seen. Hopefully he wasn't really going all out in the training footage. Hopefully he's sharper than that training footage made him out to be. I'm not talking about mentally, I'm talking about physically, all right? Because he looked very, very slow compared to what I've seen him before. Again, understandably, taking the fight on such short notice, it's difficult to be fight sharp when you only got whatever it is, 3-4 weeks notice. So that does not inspire me with confidence, the training footage and whatnot. But he's talking very confidently, Vanes Martirosyan, which I like to see. Talking very, very confidently. Again, says he's going to bang it out. Says he's not going to run. Says he's going to test Golovkin's chin. So, we'll see. And just finally, the press conference for this fight was... oh, man. You could say entertaining. You could say amusing. You could say bewildering. Because the veteran promoter Don King got up on the podium and does what he always does, which is monologue for a ridiculously long amount of time about absolute nonsense, about stuff which has got nothing to do with the fight itself. This is what Don King does, and he does it now more so than he did in his quote-unquote prime. Because I obviously remember Don King from the 80s and 90s, when he was promoting people like Mike Tyson and many other fighters, by the way. Don King, for the longest time in boxing, was the biggest promoter out there. And he did put on some fantastic shows, Don King. The reason why he's come in for criticism over the years is not because he wasn't putting on good shows and making good fights, because he was. The reason he was being criticized was because of the way he used to treat fighters. His unscrupulous behavior. That's what got Don King all the criticism. But yeah, during his heyday, Don King was a very bizarre, flamboyant character who had verbal diarrhea, used to come out and monologue all the time, even in post-fight interviews and blah, 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 blah. You know how Don King talks, motor mouth. Today, his monologues are even less comprehensible than they used to be, because he's, up there in his 80s now. He's pretty much senile at this stage. So he's still got the verbal diarrhea he used to have, but now he's senile with it. So what exactly he's saying, I mean, trying to extract any type of sense from one of these Don King monologues at this point is like finding a needle in a haystack. Because most of it is incomprehensible waffle. Irrelevant waffle. It is sometimes funny, but, you know, most of the time you're kind of in a trance-like state. Like, what the hell am I watching? Yeah, a bizarre individual. Somebody who, if you're interested in the study of psychopathy, at least when it comes to boxing, Don King should be your exhibit A. But as senile as he is now, I'm not sure if he still qualifies as a psychopath. He's too senile. But certainly in his younger days, in his heyday, in my unprofessional view, right? Because I'm not a professional psychologist. I'm not a professional forensic psychologist. I'm somebody who studied psychology in my own time, all right? But I'm not a qualified forensic psychologist. But based upon what I've studied and what I know about psychopathy, which is the area of psychology which I've been most interested in and I've studied the most, based upon what I know about it, Don King has shown all the classic hallmarks of being a psychopath earlier on in his boxing career, you know, as a promoter. Showed all the classic psychopathic characteristics. And actually, verbal diarrhea is one of the classic psychopathic characteristics. That they have this ability to be very wordy, especially when they're under pressure. They come out with this one of the people who is, I don't want to say an expert on psychopathy, but certainly a researcher into psychopathy, he coined the phrase word salad. That this is something psychopaths often exhibit, is this ability to come out with all kinds of gobbledygook, this word salad to try and throw you off. Especially when you're onto them and you're cornering them, they'll come out with all this word salad to try and hypnotize you and throw you off the scent. And they're apparently very good at that, psychopaths, a lot of them. So he exhibited all the classic characteristics of psychopathy. But yeah, at his senile age, I haven't heard too many people in the last few years who have had an issue with Don King in terms of business. Since he's been in his advanced years, in his 80s and whatnot, because he's had people like Burmester Verne. There was a little issue between Burmester Verne and Don King a couple years ago, but they resolved it. And Eric Molina, he's with Don King. I can't remember him having any kind of issue with Don King lately. So King seems to have calmed down with regards to, the unscrupulous behavior, the unscrupulous treatment of fighters. He doesn't seem to be so bad anymore. And to be fair, his son, I believe it was his son, not his brother, his son, Carl King's Don King's son, I believe. So his son also was implicated in unscrupulous behavior as well. So perhaps the son no longer being involved in the situation, I mean, maybe he is involved, I don't know, maybe I'm being ignorant here, but perhaps if the son is not involved, maybe that's also got something to do with why the fighters are being treated a little bit better by Don King these days, not just Don King's old age and senility. God, how do you pronounce it? Senility? Is that even a word? Being senile? You know what I'm talking about here, people. Anyway, that's all I got to say about this particular fight. Gennady Golovkin versus Varnes Martirosyan. Let me know what you guys feel about this one. How do you think it's going to go? Do you, like me, think that Varnes Martirosyan is going to put up a gallant effort and he might put some of Golovkin's previous opponents to shame? Or any of you actually picking Martirosyan to pull off the upset? I mean, the odds are likely to be so wide that it might be worth putting down a couple dollars if you're a betting man. If Golovkin's like, what, I don't know, 30-1 or some crazy odds like that, or Martirosyan's 30-1 against, hey, you might want to put down $3, or £3. And if it comes through, a nice little prize there for you. So yeah, let me know how you feel about it, people. As far as the rest of the card, there's nothing here that remotely interests me. I'll try and see the main event, but the rest of the card, man, I not remotely interested in any of that. Let me know how you feel, people. It's happening. I'm out.